It might. So you need 3 or 4. And so you're gonna commit to, this is AP, we're gonna take a look at death of a salesman. So if you would turn to those questions, I'm just gonna call on you whether you know the answer or not. You might be able to at least get it started, and I think these quotes will kind of get us going. Do you have yours in front of you, Julia? I just want somebody to read the first one. You don't have to have the answer. Do you have it, or do you need it? Okay. Do you have it, May?
Yeah.
All right.
Is it the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
The Supreme Court, and he didn't even mention it.
All right. Do you happen to know anything about that? You might.
Was it when Willie was getting mad that, what's his name, was like taking a case to the Supreme Court?
Yes, and what's his name mean? Bernard. He's not so much mad, but you've got the right thing. What can you add to that? You could start, yeah.
I know that when Willie was going to his neighbor's office to get money.
Yes.
When I was sitting there, and Willie asked what he was getting ready to do, and he said he was going to DC for a court case. But Willie thought he was talking about tennis court. And if you understand what he mentioned and what he says, like he didn't even mention it. He did, there's the Supreme Court. He thought he was
Right, and so what's significant about that in terms of the book as a whole? I mean, what would Willie have done if it had been reversed and Biff was going to the Supreme Court to argue a case? What would Biff have made sure to do in front of Charlie?
like he would have been making sure to brag about it.
Yeah, of course. And he can't imagine you not bragging about it. What does that reveal about Willie? It further reveals about him.
I mean, I think that further reveals like he needs validation from other people.
That's really good. Yeah.
And, like Bernard doesn't need it.
No, he just wants success. He wants to achieve success. He doesn't need people to tell him that. Now, at some point in your life, don't you need that? I mean, you need some people in your life, but you don't need everybody in your life to tell you you're doing a good job. Some people might think you're doing a bad job. Is that gonna devastate you? It better not, because somebody's probably gonna say that. It's probably not true. Maybe it is true, but the point is, I like the way you put that. He always seeks validation from other people. And we could take this to the next level. Why? It's just kind of a review. Why is Henry like, why is Willie like that? Anybody, and this, you don't have to know the quote or anything. Why does Willie need to be liked? Claire, did you have your hand up?
Because he's insecure.
Hey, what caused that in his life, from what we know in the story?
Just looking up to other salesmen and wanting to be as successful as them.
Right,
And then seeing that his life didn't really work out like that.
right,
And then he tries to live out through his kids, and they still
That's good.
don't do that for him either, so.
yeah, if you're not successful, then you want your kids to be super successful, so they don't make you look better, and that's not fair to them. Of course, his father left him, his brother left him, whatever, I'm not sure any of that's true about Ben becoming a millionaire, but that's the story. So it goes all the way back to his childhood, in fact, he's been lost, and one of the quotes here breaks your heart at the end of the book. Remember the one about when Biff cries? And it's like that's the crowning moment of his life, because he knows Biff loves him. Well, didn't he know Biff loved him? But now, based on the fact that Biff saw the other woman and the affair, he probably doesn't think he loves him. But that's all he wanted, was to be loved by people. And it's not pathetic, I'm sympathetic with that. See, that goes all the way back to this particular moment. Daniel, would you mind reading the second one?
The only thing you got in this world is what you can sell. And the funny thing is that you're a salesman and you don't know that. I think Willie's speaking here, and I think
Well, Charlie's speaking to him.
Charles speaking to Willie. And this is when Willie was asking for his same job, and Charlie did.
right? And what does it mean?
I think like it means that Willie, like, he thinks he knows a lot about being a salesman, about like being a good salesman, but he actually doesn't, and that his advice isn't really good.
Right, and what does it mean? The only thing you got in this world is what you can sell. And the funny thing is, you're a salesman, you don't know that. What does that mean? When the only thing you've got as a salesman is what you sell. Well, that's what the word salesman means, right? You're selling something. So how did Willie miss that? What's Willie doing? If he's not selling something, what is he doing?
I guess what he's trying to say is his personality.
What about it?
That like, in order for you to like sell like products, you also need to have a good personality.
That's what Willie thinks, right? Or is that what Charlie thinks? We just said Willie's the guy who wants to be liked by everybody, so isn't that kind of what Willie thinks? So what are you selling? Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say that Charlie's kind of telling Willie that he's just a salesman, like he doesn't really have much of a life outside of that.
Okay. And what do salesmen sell? I mean, you gotta sell something. Willie's selling who? What is Willie selling? What is Willie always selling? And he wants to be liked, so he's kind of always selling himself, and that's certainly part of it. What did Aristotle say about persuasion? What are the 3 points of persuasion? The reason I know this because I picked up somebody's notes the other day and I remembered. What are the 3 things you have to be to persuade people? Ethos. What are they?
Ethos, logos.
So what's ethos?
Ethos is credibility.
So there's an element of you're selling yourself, right? But what's the pathos and the logos?
Pathos is it's like emotional.
Right. And what's the logos?
Logic.
So Willie's got stuck on one of the 3 things. It's all about me. But you got a product. You got to sell the product. You probably don't do this, but you go into a big store and you're looking for something, you don't know where it is, and there's some stores, I won't mention any names, but I think they avoid you when you go in there, and they don't want to answer your question. They're trying to do, they got something to do, they always look, they going this way and that way, always look like they just got something, and you stop them, and I've had 1 or 2 say, would you go see somebody? I'm busy right now. That's pretty rude for a customer, but I love the guy who stops and said, yeah, it's over there in aisle 3, about halfway down, lower shelf. I was really impressive. He knows his product. And I thought Willie never knew his product. Really, I don't think Willie ever understood that, yeah, you got to sell yourself that much, but if you don't know what you're selling or the product, you can't be very successful. And Willie's stuck in something. How about Claire, number 3?
One is everybody like,
We've done this one a lot, but then you can probably answer it real quickly.
he just cares what everyone thinks about.
Now, who's he?
Willie.
So who's probably telling this or asking him this?
He like, yeah.
Well, who's the one that's always telling him truth? Charlie. And again, when you use quotes, it's so important that you give the context. Real briefly, this is when Charlie said that, I think one of you said this, I don't remember who it was over here, but it was in Charlie's office, and Charlie was telling Willie, said, okay, that's all you need to tell me. Now I know where you're talking about. So how again, what is the significance of this?
He just cares too much about what other people think about him and thinks that's the only way he can be successful.
Right.
If people like him.
And it's not. We know that. He's criticizing all Willie has built his life on. How about 4, Maddie?
After all the highways and the trains and the appointments and the years, no doubt worth more dead than alive. Is this Charlie speaking loudly?
Yes. I think. I wrote down himself or Charlie. I better double check that. I wrote Willie. I think it's Willie either to himself or to Charlie. And of course, why is this significant? is that true in his case? Was he worth more dead?
Yes, because the insurance policy.
But,
But his family was really upset.
right, and what about that insurance? Is anybody gonna see one penny of that insurance?
No.
Because,
It was suicide.
that's right. Remember Mortimer, Little Paw, and All the King's Men? I can't remember if they got any, because he killed himself. He made it look like it was an accident, but you don't get money, so that was a complete lie, and he went with it. How about 5, Layla?
Dad is never so happy as when he's looking for it. It's probably like Biff or Happy talking about their dad.
It is. I think it's happy.
Lily like always has really high expectations for things that he wants to do, but then when it actually happens, he gets really like irritable and mad and disappointed.
And doesn't this fit into that theme of dreams, the whole book? I think that's the chief theme in the book, yeah.
I just feel like it also talks about, or like, was referring to like how he's always looking in the future and isn't like enjoying the things that are important in life, and he's just worried about what's next.
Very good. I think it's a terrible thing. You've probably done, I used to do this. You live for the weekend, can't wait till 3:30. Live for the weekend, can't wait for break. You know, I mean, that makes life miserable. And then 3:30 and summer and weekends aren't as great as you hope they would be. I heard a guy recently say, wherever you are, just no matter how, whatever it is, be there, be present right there. It'll make things a lot easier if you just accept where you are, what you're doing, and life won't be so difficult. You're making it a lot more difficult. I can't wait till this is over. And I've often felt that way, but I don't anymore because life is too short. But that is part of the thing. Dreaming is part of life. It's hope. We admit it, but he never got what he hoped for or what he dreamed for. Kylie, how about 6 and 7 are by the same person, but number 6.
I'm no good, can you see what I did?
Is it Willie?
It's Biff to Willie.
Oh.
Willie never admits that. He has doubts, but he would never admit that. So what does it mean that Biff would admit that to Willie?
It shows like how Biff thinks Willie has, like he doesn't have confidence in him and who he's becoming, and how he's kind of not proud of what he is.
What's the negative part about being down on yourself? Like in general? Like if you said this too often, what would that do to you if you always said, I'm no good, I'm nobody? What's wrong with that? Why would that not be a good way to live?
It would make you a more negative person if you don't have any confidence in yourself.
Yeah, and what about, is there anything good about it? Yeah.
I mean, like,
Not being too down on yourself, but is there anything ever good about seeing that I'm not good at that, or that was terrible of me, or whatever? Is there anything good about that?
well, I mean, like, change begins with awareness.
Yes.
If you're aware that you are best at something, you can always like make a change to improve.
Yeah, so that's something Willie never goes through, self-awareness, but Biff does. Biff realizes, I'm a liar, I'm a thief, and I'm a failure. I mean, if that's where you ended, that would be terrible, but at least it's the start. The second one is important too. Caroline, number 7.
And I never got anywhere because you blew me so full of hot air. I could never stand taking orders from anybody. That's whose fault it is.
He's shifting the blame. He's blaming his dad. There's probably some truth to that, but what does it mean? Why is it important?
Like you said, he's shifting the blame to his father, but he's saying that he had to deal with his dad so much and had to listen to whenever his dad got upset or frustrated at something, he couldn't deal with listening to other people.
And here, what does he say? Is he saying his dad was too hard on me? Biff is not saying his dad, that Willie is too hard on him. It was just the opposite, wasn't it? He wasn't hard enough. He said, "You blew me so full of hot air." What do you think he means by that? See, some of these expressions I've noticed you don't know because you're not old enough. You know, I grew up hearing some of this. Yeah.
This reminds me of like the flashback when Bernard was trying to get Kip to study for math, but Willie was like, no, he has like, he's going to school for football, he doesn't really need math, but then he failed math and didn't go to college.
That's a good example. That's from Willie. You don't need to work hard. You know, you're gonna be great in this other thing. Maddie, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say the same thing, that he just really made Viv seem like he was amazing and didn't have to try at anything. He was just gonna breeze through life, but in reality, he wasn't.
Again, this is, I probably wouldn't wanna answer this question, but have you ever realized that somebody was how to put it, was telling you things about yourself, good things about yourself, but they weren't true? I mean, they were maybe flattering you, but you realize you weren't that person, and you're not that good, and yet they're telling you you could be, and you realize it's just wrong. It's not true. That's not good. You want people to tell you what you are. How about 8, Sam?
I stopped in the middle of that building and I saw the sky. I saw the things that I love in this world, the work and the food and the time to sit and smoke.
You know anything about that?
I think he's really just taking it all in and like, I think he's almost looking back at like a broader picture of like what he enjoys.
Yeah. Which is what, as opposed to what?
Like, well, smoking or whatever it is, stuff that's not important rather than like his family.
Yeah, but he says work, food, and a time to sit and smoke. The smoking is really irrelevant. It's not a thing about the good and bad things about smoking. Yeah. Hang on just a minute. What is he saying he'd rather do? What is he trying to do?
Well, I think he's trying to do things to satisfy him. That's why I said smoke, just because like I think that is put in there just to show like
Right.
how it's
But what is he trying to do that he's striking out about? Like he just went up to Oliver's to try to get a job as a salesman. He's trying to be like his father. What is he realizing about himself? Kieran, can you get us past that? He just told us his father blew hot air into him, told him he was good at stuff that he really wasn't, put dreams in him that he really didn't want to have. What is he turning his back on now?
He's turning his back on what he wants him to be.
Which is?
Salesman.
Yeah, successful in the eyes of the world. What is success in Biff's eyes? What does he mean? Work, food, sit, smoke. What is that really about? Your work and working with your hands and that kind of thing. That's what he wants to do. But that's not successful in Willie's eyes. Is somebody doing that for you? Are they pushing you in a direction? You got to be this, you got to be that. This is what success is. When you realize this is a legitimate thing. It's not, I don't want to sit home and, sleep late the rest of my life. I want to be this, but somebody else is telling you that's not successful. You're not going to be successful if you're this. You got to be this to be successful. That's Biff. Biff realized that what he was told about what success is isn't what he thinks success is. And no one person can tell you that, except for him. He can, but in terms of the world, you got to figure out what you're good at, and hopefully you have people that telling you what you're good at. How about number 9? Very important statement. When?
I'm not a dime a dozen, I'm really no man in the world. So it's really tough on Beth, and I'm not really sure what he means by this.
Well, do you know what the expression dime a dozen means? That's another one they didn't know. Anybody know what that means? Yeah.
You're not unique.
Yeah, I mean, you're cheap, you're inexpensive. You can get that a dime a dozen. It's so cheap, you can buy a dozen of them for a dime. But Willie says, I'm not that way. I'm Willie Loman and you're Biff Loman. Well, of course they are. But what does he mean when he says, I'm Willie Loman? I can picture him beating his chest. Isabella.
Maybe he was just saying that, like, well, he was kind of realizing that he's just like everyone else, and he's just kind of ordinary. He's not what he, like, wants to be.
But he doesn't want to be that way, right?
Yeah.
He said, I am somebody. I'm Willie Loman. And by the way, what's ironic about his last name? I'm Willie Lowman. You see, that's ironic. He really is, in every respect, an ordinary person. Do you respect any of that? Noah, do you respect somebody who's down here but wants to be up here? Is there anything wrong with that?
No, because they want to prove themselves.
We live in America, right? That guy down here can be that guy up here. That's what this book is about. It's about that American dream, but what's wrong with that idea? Nothing wrong with the American dream. Yeah, you have the opportunities, but what's wrong with it? What is the book telling us is wrong with that kind of, I can be this? Yeah.
He's not taking any action.
And maybe this isn't what I am. You know, maybe I'm better working in nature in my hands on a ranch. I can be the best person, and you're not the person that tells me, am I successful or not? You can't tell me I'm important or not. I'll decide that, not you. 10, 11, we'll kind of skip those because we've been over them. That's about that guy, Dave Singleman. It occurred to me his name is also symbolic. He's a single man. Remember, what did that suggest? He's the guy in the car, in the train car, in a robe and green slippers with a phone. Yeah, what was?
Yeah, just like, although he's like a successful businessman, like he's like lonely.
Yeah, he's all by, he doesn't have a family, and it's almost like there's just one of him. You can't be Dave Singleman. Dave Singleman can't be you, because there's only one of you. I think that's really healthy to realize. You're unique, and try to figure out what you're best at. I think this is really helpful. Number 12 is Willie to Howard, again, about personality and all that. 13, it's not what you do, it's who you know, and a smile on your face. How about it, John? That's Willie to Ben. They were having this argument, how do you become successful? But what do you think about that? It's not who you know, it's not what you do, it's who you know, and the smile on your face.
I think it means how he needs to stop worrying about what other people think and really focus on himself.
But he thinks it is who you know, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a situation that the coach's son, whatever, that happens in sports a lot. He's a starting pitcher, but you're just another guy on the team who pitches. But because you're the coach's son, it's who you know. It's not necessarily how good you are. I've seen that as you get higher and like you get older and high school to college, it is what you do. Nobody could care who your father is or mother is or who you know. If you can throw fast, if you can throw 90 miles an hour, you're gonna pitch for us. Or if you can write really well, you're gonna write for us. I like that idea. We still live in a country most of the time where your abilities are more important than the friends that you have and who you know. And then 14 is also Ben to Willie. Let's look at this last group here and we'll finish it. They had this argument is about sales versus something else. Like sales, you can't put your hand on it. It's about feelings and things. And Ben was all about the thing. And so I kind of like Ben. You can feel with your hands like a timber, it's there. That's the problem with being a salesman. You can't really feel it. You don't have anything in your hand except maybe a check or something that says you made some money there. Look at 16 and 17. Particularly 17, that's Charlie to Biff. A salesman has got to dream. It comes with the territory. Remember, it's really, I like Charlie. He made fun of Willie sometimes, but he said he defends Willie at his funeral. He says, Willie was a brave man because all salesmen have is their dream. It's a book about dreams. Look at number 18. Isn't that the American dream? To own your house? Like you pay the last payment, you own your house. And Willie never saw that because he died. His death is very tragic. Number 19, that's what Willie thinks that's what success is, to go into the jungle and come out as a millionaire. That's all he knows. He doesn't know the hard work that goes into it. Number 20, why was it important that Biff cried? Will, why is that important? Remember Biff cried when at this last scene and Willie leaves and goes kills himself.
So why does it imply?
Why is it important to Willie that Biff cried?
Because, I mean, the relationship between Willie and Biff wasn't really great.
Right.
Willie would say some stuff about Biff and how he's kind of like almost a disappointment because he was like a farmhand. So I guess that kind of just was a little last connection between them. Just something about it.
He thought that Biff loved him. What were you gonna say, Ty? Anything?
Oh, I was just saying, like, it really showed that Biff, kind of what Will says, like, he actually cared about him.
Yeah. And remember, this is what matters to Willie more than anything, that people love him. Isn't that pathetic? Pathetic, that's life. We want people to love us, but not everybody. You don't need to have everybody like you. Just a few people is enough, probably get you through life. Last thing, when I take off my helmet, the touchdown's for you. Remember that's Biff to Willie, and that's the last time Biff was successful. And he honored his father. And again, that's sort of the opposite of the first statement when Charlie, he didn't say anything about Bernard, or Bernard didn't say anything about it. And here, Biff is just the opposite. He's like his father. He's going to draw attention to himself. Dreams, that's an important thing. We're not writing tomorrow, we're writing Thursday. We're going to do something else tomorrow. It really does matter if you know the work of literature. You're going to have to pick one. I mentioned that earlier. So start thinking about the books that you're willing to write about, that we've read this year or you read last year. You will need to be able to know a book really well, because you won't be able to fool them. Not that you'd want to, but you've got to know it. You got to know what you're talking about.